Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. So happy to welcome from Bethel Church and the Hope House specifically. We've got Pastor Scott Spencer, Dan Daniel, and Kelly Dario. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Anybody who has traveled up and down Market Avenue has been looking at that beautiful old farmhouse for years and years and years. And where should we start? Why don't we start with the church purchasing it? So I'm going to look at you, Pastor Spencer. Tell me, first of all, what's the story with the house?
Sure. Back in 2002, Bethel Church purchased the land thinking that they were going to relocate at that time. And so things changed.
Let me stop you.
Yeah,
Were you
right
going
ahead.
to tear down that beautiful home and build a church there? Oh,
Well,
no.
let
Say it
me
isn't
tell
so.
you. Okay, it's not so. All my...
Oh, my.
I was kidding around. I do a lot of kidding. And we had the Historical Society came in, and they wanted to check out the house. You know, the house was built in 1835. And it was, I guess it's one of the landmarks in Plain Township, second house, I think, built. But I was kidding around because they asked me what we were going to do with it, because we were nowhere close to where it is today as of how we have remodeled inside and out. And I just flippantly said, I don't know, we're just probably going to burn it down.
Oh, gosh. You said that to the Historical
I
Society.
did. And they about had a cow.
I guess they weren't laughing.
There was no laughs. There was zero laughs in that. And I was like, I'm just teasing, just teasing.
Oh, my.
So, yeah.
Oh, my
Anyways.
goodness. Well, what was the shape it was in those days when you looked at it in '02?
In '02, it wasn't too bad,
Okay.
meaning there was a lot of remodeling that needed to take place then of the house. But the focus of that time was not really the house. It was really the land and what they wanted to do with it. And I was not the pastor at that time. I came in 2010 to be the on staff here. Became the pastor in 2013. So basically, they had the house up to speed. They were renting it, and then by the time I became the pastor, the house was in really bad shape.
Well, in 2007, 2008 had happened.
Yeah, the bottom fell out. I mean, you know, you're looking at when we bought it in 2002, of $600,000 for 13 and a half acres. And then the bottom fell out. And at one time, well, even as pastor, we tried to sell it. And we did not get close to not even half to
Right.
what we paid for. So we, of course, we kept it.
Well, that shows a lot of gumption in itself for your church to just hold on and wait and be patient. Seems like God had other plans for that property.
Absolutely. I mean, at the time, I don't know if we felt that way, but I think the reality is that the hindsight is, yes, we're so glad we kept it so much.
Dan, you have a story of your own that's transformational, much like the house is transformational.
Yeah,
How
pretty
much would you
much.
like to share with us?
I can tell you, I lost my son to a drug overdose. He was a bodybuilder, and he was taking killers from hurting his shoulder, and then it graduated from that into harder stuff. And he ended up having to go to prison for 2 years. And when he got out, he was doing really well, and I thought, boy, he really kicked it and such, and he was doing really well. He had a really great job. He worked for J.D. Byrider and made quite a bit of money. His last year, he made like $230,000. He had a really nice house. I have a beautiful granddaughter from him. And, when I got that call that he had overdosed, it killed me.
Yeah.
And there was just a point where I didn't think I could even go on. And Kelly wanted me to call Scott. And Scott and Kelly have been friends from high school for 40 years.
Wow.
So she was trying to talk me into going to church, and I was like, church isn't for me, da-da-da-da. And actually, I was on my way to Harbor Freight, and I was arguing with her over the phone as I walked through the door, and I bumped into somebody. Oh, I'm sorry. And I looked up, and it was Scott.
Oh, my.
Isn't that cool?
Okay. Yeah, very
so
cool.
I said, well, I'll call you back, Kelly. So
Yeah.
he was like, look, just come and try it once, and maybe it'll help. And he was pretty sure, and So I called Kelly. I told her, go to church, and we haven't missed a Sunday, I don't think, since then. So
We read about that hound of heaven where he's after you and you're not outrunning him.
Absolutely.
That is so cool. Yeah,
Well,
you were getting it from both barrels then.
yeah, it was pretty comforting to go to church. The people at Bethel were all
Yes.
extremely nice. I mean, extremely nice. It's a very comfortable church, and I just felt really comfortable there. So for
Kelly,
the first time,
and you were able to see something in Dan that through that pain that he was going through, which understandably you would be angry. We hear this story way too many times about someone who, because of pain and prescription pharmaceuticals, and can get hooked on it so easily. And we've just heard this story way too many times. So you were able to see through that pain and invite him to church and then duck or what?
No, that's not what happened at all. Is he might have wanted us to duck, but I think that the Holy Spirit took over from that point.
Yes.
And we were full speed ahead. And it wasn't until I think the following spring that we got his motorcycle out dusted it off and took a ride on, one of the nice days, and happened to meet Pastor Scott over at the farmhouse. And this was my first time.
Now, why meet at the farmhouse?
the day that we had went out there, Scott had brought some of the board members of the church because the board had changed and some of them hadn't actually even seen the property. So they were trying to discuss what they were going to do with it and such. And Scott was making a joke, of course, at the time, we should just burn it down. And,
Oh, my.
and, you know, the kids had run all over out there. They busted in the windows and
Sure.
the roof was rotten. I mean, there was a lot going on there. There was beer cans in the house where they had come in and drink beer and on top of the hill. And
The copper had been stolen.
they stole all the
the
plumbing
was
out of it.
gone.
My.
Yeah, and I think Pastor Scott, this was a place where he went as more of a, personal safe haven, is where he walked.
I did.
You walked the property.
What was it about the property that drew you as a
You know,
safe haven?
We're always looking for places that just kind of get away from everything.
Mm-hmm.
And, no matter, some people use their car, closets, parks. And this one here, when I found out that this was the church's property, I went ahead and just kind of walked the whole property and just kind of seen what, to see what it, how much land it is. And so when I went back into the woods, and there was just such a comfort and peace. And I actually, the way I always term it is that I felt like I was in the middle of 1,000 acres, because there's like a little gully that just takes you away, and it was just awesome. So, all that to say, I started using the property as more of like a prayer walk, and I would go back there and start looking at stuff and just praying to God and dream about things. And with the house, it was always something that intrigued me, but I had just gone through probably 4 years of taking the Bethel church that had needed a lot of repair,
Yes.
a lot of upkeep, and went to every single room. I felt like more of a contractor than I was a pastor at times. Okay, so
Well, you
when
wear
we-
a lot of hats as a pastor.
Yeah, that hat was like getting really old. And so
He likes projects.
So going out there was very relaxing. And so when they stopped out and we were in the house, the farmhouse, I told them a story about the first deacon that handed me the keys to the house. And he had said that there's this lady that walked through, and she said to him, "This house will bring a lot of hope to people's lives."
Wow.
And so he started calling it the Hope House. So the keys that he had on the bag, or the key with the bag, said Hope House. And I said, "What's that?" And he told me the story. Well, we're sitting, Danny, Kelly, and I are sitting in the house talking about this, what to do. And I told him, I said, look, I do not want to get into this project doing this all by myself. No, we'll do it. We'll do all of us and blah, blah, blah. And then Kelly has a dream. I'll let her tell you what she said.
Let's hear your dream.
So I just knew after we had walked, through the house, and after Dan had made his sales pitch to Pastor Scott about, what each room would cost to renovate without labor, of course. And we had decided that, it was, I forget how you said, if you were going to write him a check or.
Yeah, we just went from room to room, and I said, "What would you do in here?" He said, "Well, it needs a new floor. The ceiling's got to be repaired. Fix the window." So when we got to the top, I think it was like $24,000, and I was like, "Oh, we should just use this house." So I kind of twisted him. I think he had to think about it for a couple of days.
Yeah. So I had been. If I back up 10 years and this dream that I had in my mind, it was more of a vision than a dream. But I had been renovating furniture for the last 10 years and collecting antiques and collecting broken pieces and fixing them. And it wasn't until we were in this place, in this house, that I realized that God had been working on me for the last 10 years, because I would renovate this furniture and I would fix it up, and I would go to try to think that I was going to sell it, and I couldn't let it go. So I ended up with a warehouse full of things that, that were beautiful.
Yes.
And as I was, looking at the house and seeing in my mind the house finished, I could see this furniture
Got all the furnishings ready
that
to
I
go.
had been working on for the past 10 years and not understanding why I was passionate, about that.
You know what I love about what you said, too?
Yeah.
Going to try and say this without getting teary. Broken pieces.
Right. Right. And it wasn't the pretty things that I was attracted to. It was the broken pieces that I wanted to put back together and make them beautiful.
And what an analogy for the purpose of this house.
Right.
Dan, when you saw it, did you get this same idea? Like, what we ought to do here?
yeah,
Did this all come to mind like all at once?
All at once.
It definitely did. I think for all three of us, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, Scott was saying, it's a big project, and there was a ton of stuff that needed to be done. And I told him, I said, me and Kelly like doing stuff like that. Let us try to get started on it.
So it was a secret for a little while.
Absolutely.
We got a couple of the rooms done, and then it was close to Christmas time at that time of the year, and we had a fire in the fireplace and had cookies and coffee, and we invited
the church.
Yes.
We had a pretty good turnout. I mean, we had like 70 people from the church came and looked at it.
And I love now, because what you're talking about is this home that was, might as well burn it down, throw it away, no good at all.
Right.
And this furniture, same kind of thing, all these broken pieces that you were able to completely restore to beauty.
Yeah.
Now you're doing the same thing with people's lives.
Right.
Yeah.
And did the church, when they made that visit last Christmas, was it, did they all buy into it? Like, what we ought to do here? The whole thing?
It's funny that you ask that, because I put a box out into the lobby asking for people's ideas. Because at that time, we wanted to be very open to our congregation, because it's the church's property. It's the church's house. And we wanted to be very open and sensitive to what others could see the house being. And so I collected, the little pieces of paper as people were writing down their ideas, and it was unanimous that this is
that happens all the time with churches, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
There's never disagreement.
It was truly unanimous.
That is a Christmas miracle right there.
Yeah.
We need to take a short break. We're visiting with Pastor Scott Spencer, Dan Daniel, and Kelly Dario. They are from Hope House. We'll be back after these words. You're listening to Our Community.